My name is Julie, and what I'm about to share is a deeply personal story, one that shaped my life and my relationship with my mother-in-law, Kelly. When I met Kelly for the first time, I had no idea the conflict that would soon arise between us. She wasn't always the woman I know today, a vain and self-absorbed individual who was obsessed with status and wealth. James, my husband, often talked about the loving, humble woman she once was, a single mother who worked hard to raise him after the sudden death of his father. Kelly's life changed dramatically when James became successful, and so did her attitude. As James grew into a successful doctor, Kelly's need for luxury seemed to grow with it, and this caused an unseen rift between us from the very start. I was hopeful that over time, Kelly and I would find common ground, but I had no idea that this was the beginning of a conflict that would change our lives forever. James is an extraordinary man, kind, humble, and loving, someone who has never let his success get to his head. He always wanted to provide for his mother and ensure she lived comfortably, which was understandable given how much she had sacrificed for him. However, Kelly's idea of comfort became something far more extravagant than I had expected. When I first met her, it was clear that she had misjudged me. I don't work by choice and for personal reasons, but that doesn't define who I am. Kelly, on the other hand, saw this as a sign of laziness. She looked at me with disdain during our first meeting, making hurtful remarks about how I didn't measure up to the kind of woman she envisioned for her son. It was a painful start, and I knew I was walking into a challenging situation, but I never anticipated how deeply Kelly's attitude toward me would affect my marriage with James. The tension between Kelly and me worsened as time went on. She began spreading rumors about me, telling her friends that I was only with James for his money. She gossiped about my lack of a career, implying that I was some kind of gold digger. Despite James standing up for me, defending me at every turn, the strain was clear. He was caught between the woman he loved, me, and the mother who had raised him. The more Kelly pushed, the more stressed our marriage became. I tried to keep a calm front, telling myself that this was just Kelly being overprotective of her son. But it was more than that. Her obsession with status and appearances began to affect us financially too. James had always sent money to Kelly to help her with living expenses, but soon the amounts grew larger as she sought a lifestyle that far exceeded what she truly needed. This began to put a strain on our own finances, yet I didn't want to object because I knew James felt a sense of duty toward her. Everything came to a head when Kelly invited me to a party she was hosting. It was out of the blue, and after everything that had happened between us, I was naturally skeptical. She says she's trying to improve things between you two, James told me, hope in his eyes. I wanted to believe him, but deep down I knew something wasn't right. Kelly had never shown any interest in mending our relationship before, so why now? Despite my reservations, I agreed to attend the party, mostly for James's sake. But something strange happened. A few days later, I received a text from Kelly outlining the details of the party. Instead of an invitation, however, it felt like she was boasting. She bragged about how the party would be hosted at one of the most exclusive 5-star hotels in town, with expensive food, a high-end guest list, and designer outfits. I couldn't help but feel uncomfortable. Something didn't add up. Out of curiosity, I texted Kelly back, asking if I was invited. Her response was colder than I expected. "This is a high-class event, Julie," she said. "I'm not sure you'd feel comfortable with the crowd I've invited. It's for people with a certain level of class." Her words were sharp, and I felt a wave of frustration and hurt. But instead of reacting emotionally, I calmly replied, thanking her for the information, and made it clear that I wouldn't attend if I wasn't wanted. The irony of the situation was almost laughable. You see, what Kelly didn't know was that the very 5-star hotel she was boasting about belonged to my family. Several years ago, I had inherited a substantial amount of money from my grandfather and had invested it in my dad's business, which included ownership of that hotel. I had always kept this part of my life private because I didn't want to flaunt my wealth. But now, Kelly's arrogance was about to lead her to an unexpected downfall. The day of the party arrived, and while I stayed home, I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of anticipation. I knew what was coming. Kelly and her friends, completely unaware of the situation, had likely ordered the most expensive items on the menu, expecting James to somehow cover any unexpected costs. But things weren't going to go according to plan. A few hours into the evening, my phone rang. It was my father. "Julie," he said, struggling to hold back laughter. "Kelly and her guests just racked up a $5,000 bill, and she's now asking for a huge discount because she doesn't have enough money to pay it." I couldn't help but smile. It was exactly what I had expected. My father, always one to appreciate a bit of poetic justice, asked what I wanted to do. Without hesitation, I said, "Make her and her friends work it off. Let them clean the kitchen and wash the dishes. They need to understand the consequences of their actions." An hour later, my father sent me pictures of the scene unfolding in the hotel's kitchen. There was Kelly, still dressed in her expensive outfit, scrubbing dishes and wiping down countertops, alongside her equally mortified friends. The sense of satisfaction I felt at that moment was overwhelming. For years, Kelly had looked down on me, judged me, and treated me as though I was beneath her. And now she was the one brought down by her own arrogance. Of course, I didn't revel in her humiliation, but there was something incredibly just about the whole situation. Kelly had spent so long trying to tear me down, and now, here she was, facing the consequences of her choices. When James came home later that night, he could tell something was off. "I got a strange call from my mom," he said, looking at me with concern. "She said something about the hotel and washing dishes." I calmly explained everything to James, showing him the text from Kelly, the bill she had racked up, and the photos of her working in the hotel's kitchen. At first, James was shocked, but as he read through the evidence, his expression hardened. "I can't believe she's been lying to me this whole time," he said, anger flashing in his eyes. He had always trusted his mother, and while he knew she had her faults, he never expected her to deceive him like this. Later that evening, James called Kelly to confront her. The conversation started off tense, with Kelly trying to downplay the situation. "It was just a small misunderstanding," she said, her voice laced with irritation. But James wasn't buying it. "You've been lying to me for years, Mom," he said firmly. "And worse, you've disrespected Julie at every turn. This ends now." Kelly was stunned. She tried to backpedal, offering excuses and apologies, but James had made up his mind. "I've supported you financially for years," he said, "but no more. I'm cutting you off." The silence on the other end of the phone was deafening. Kelly couldn't believe what she was hearing. For so long, she had relied on James to fund her increasingly extravagant lifestyle, and now that was being taken away. "You can't do this," she finally said, her voice shaking with desperation. But James remained firm. "You've crossed the line too many times, Mom. Until you can show respect to my wife, you're no longer part of our lives." With that, he ended the call and blocked her number. It was a difficult decision for James, but one he knew was necessary. Kelly's behavior had gone unchecked for too long, and it was time to put an end to it once and for all. In the weeks that followed, Kelly's life began to unravel. Without James's financial support, she quickly realized she couldn't maintain the lifestyle she had grown accustomed to. She was forced to give up her luxurious condo and move into a much smaller apartment. The designer clothes, the lavish parties, the expensive dinners, they all became things of the past. It was a hard fall for someone who had spent so many years building her life around appearances. She sent us emails, pleading with James to reconsider, but her attempts were in vain. We both knew that she wasn't truly sorry for how she had treated me. She was only sorry for the consequences that followed. James, who had always been generous with his mother, had finally seen through her manipulations. It was a painful realization for him, but it also brought us closer together as a couple. Amidst all the chaos with Kelly, there was a silver lining. A few months after the party incident, I discovered I was pregnant. The news brought an overwhelming sense of joy and relief to both James and me. After everything we had been through with Kelly, we finally had something beautiful to focus on. Preparing for our baby became our top priority, and we poured all our energy into creating a loving, peaceful environment for our child. We knew that Kelly would likely try to re-enter our lives at some point, but for now, we had no intention of letting her near us. The peace we felt in her absence was a stark contrast to the stress and negativity she had brought into our marriage. Our focus now was on building a future for our child, one that was free from toxicity and filled with love. As I sit here today, reflecting on everything that has happened, I feel a sense of closure. Kelly may have tried to ruin our relationship, but in the end, her actions only made us stronger. James and I are more united than ever, and we're excited to welcome our baby into the world. The lessons we learned from dealing with Kelly's toxicity have shaped the way we approach our marriage and our future as parents. We've set clear boundaries, and we won't allow anyone to disrupt the happiness we've worked so hard to create. Kelly's downfall was a result of her own choices, and though I don't take pleasure in her suffering, I know that justice has been served. Our lives are finally at peace, and I am grateful for the strength that came from facing such a difficult situation. Our future is bright, and nothing will take that away from us now.